All right, I want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein again. And the reason I want to is I think it's very apparent that the government and everyone involved is trying to move very hard on from this topic. And I think the more they do that, the more compromised they make themselves look. It looks incredibly curious that they want to talk about anything and everything except for Jeffrey Epstein. And at the very base of it, I think it matters for one reason. And that is, are we okay with adults exploiting children and getting away with it? And remove Trump from the conversation completely. Where do we draw the line with what we think is okay to be taking place in our country? Are we okay with young girls being taken advantage of by adults? Now let's turn back to Trump. Recently, he brought up that he was mentioned in the Epstein files. He said it himself. And Congress is shutting down early now to prevent a vote to release all the files. And again, this is just one of the few things that he's done recently, but it makes you look so much more guilty when you want to step away and hope that when you come back in 2 months, a month and a half, we'll just have forgotten about it by then. And the question that I ask myself, and I think everyone else needs to be asking as well, is why doesn't he want it released? In my mind, there are two likely answers. The first, that Trump has had inappropriate relations with minors. Or the second, Trump has been threatened to be assassinated because the deep state doesn't want to be exposed. And I don't think that's too far-fetched. I mean, in his run up to the election, there's one actual assassination attempt that was thwarted. And then there was, the guy hiding in the bushes that they found beforehand. So two that we know of. So it's not far-fetched to say that that could be the cause, either or. And again, it's those two in my mind are the top two that I can think of that make the most sense with the ways that he's acting. And the problem with the first hypothesis is that if Trump is compromised, you forget about, obviously that would mean that he is doing awful things to minors. But if he's compromised, putting that aside and looking forward to what that means, he could be blackmailed, possibly by Israel, to do things that are not in our United States citizens' best interest, like supplying bombs and military support for Israel to bomb Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, or all four at once, which we're doing. So there you go. And I don't think anyone is particularly happy with that. And the problem with the second hypothesis, the assassination hypothesis, is that if that is true, then our government is not only threatening the highest elected official in our country's life, but also they are most likely, or were, although it could still be going on, because my understanding is that there were still payments even after Jeffrey passed away going on to and from his estate. But essentially, they're running a pedophile ring, whether that's the CIA or whoever, with the goal of compromising powerful individuals, then making it so that they have to bend to their will, and effectively acting as a shadow government, unaccountable to the people of the United States. Either way, there's a big line that is crossed for me in the raping because that's what it is. You can't call it any. I mean, I can use some other words to try and pussyfoot around it and soften it a little bit. But that is what is happening of underage girls. And in my opinion, all of the people implicated should be put in jail immediately. And the institutions that supported Jeffrey Epstein should be dissolved, especially if they exist inside the United States. I think everyone on both sides of the political spectrum should be able to get behind this action. And I think if you see anyone trying to cover for or move on from the Jeffrey Epstein story, there should be an immediate reaction to bring the focus back to Epstein. I've seen many times where it will be a right-wing influencer that is covering something else, and I understand that you can do two things at once, but the focus needs to be on this until it comes out. We cannot allow for them to move on past this, because the problem is that if they are able to move past this, and this is the biggest issue for me, aside from obviously all the things that have happened or are accused to have happened, but if they can get away with this, then they can do that to anything else. They can do the most horrible things, and then they learn the lesson that we can basically, crime is completely legal. We can do whatever we want, and then as long as we just throw a whole bunch of news stories out into the ether, just pelt them with nonstop story, then we can move past it and get away with basically completely unscathed. And that's the lesson that they're going to learn from it. So then they can treat us, the United States citizens, worse and worse and worse, and do more and more and more atrocious things to us, all of us, both sides of the spectrum, right and left, and everyone in between. The government can continue to do worse and worse and worse things to us and learn that nothing will happen in response. I don't know about you, but that is not the type of world that I want to live in. So every time you see someone and they're bringing up one of these other stories, you need to bring the focus back onto Epstein until we get clarity. You do, I do. I've been trying to make a point of it myself, because I have seen, again, right-wing people who, oh, look at this, look at what, and you can see it already happening, right? The government is already trying to distract from the story. Trump threatening to revoke Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship. Like, why are we even talking about this? She's not even in the country anymore. Rolling out the Russia hoax again. Like, I thought we moved past this. Which also, by the way, will lead to nothing. Like, do you really think they're going to actually arrest Obama? Don't make me laugh. Coke promising to use cane sugar in their drinks. Sending Congress home early so they can't complete a vote to release all of the Epstein files immediately. We cannot be distracted from what they do not want to talk about. And quite frankly, the harder they try to distract us, the more guilty they look. And I don't know about you, but I don't want people who have inappropriate relationships with minors running our country. Full stop. If you agree with me, I would really appreciate it if you could share this video. Again, I think the most important thing is that we continue to keep pressure, especially as they take a break, as they're sending Congress home early, to basically, hey, maybe they'll forget about this story. We need to tell them throughout this entire time, and especially when they get back in session, we're not forgetting about it. We're not going to go away. We need closure on this issue. And it needs to come from both ends of the spectrum. Because, again, there has to be a line in the sand somewhere. And I think having sex with underage minors should be a line that everyone can agree on. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.